Well, I hope you're hanging in there like we're trying to. The last week has resulted in so many people becoming woke, so many brands, so many companies becoming woke and realizing just how systemically racist they are, or their products are, or the things that they support are. And if they don't support Black Lives Matter, then they've now realized that they are on the wrong side of the fence. They are on the wrong side of history. And there's been Supreme Court decisions and cancel culture raging right now. And it is too much for one man to handle. So that and more on this episode of The WireTap. Hello everyone, my name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And this is The WireTap, and the world around us just seems to be burning. Over the period of the last 4 weeks, our world has just gone totally insane. Our world is upside down. We were riding along on our little sea of tranquility that we had. I mean, despite coronavirus, but all things considered domestically, we were doing pretty well. And over the last 4 weeks, there has just been a tornado, a typhoon of woke culture come after the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis. And over the last 3 days, we were off over the weekend, but over the last 3 days, just since we've been back, we looked at no news over the weekend. We looked at nothing. We had no contact with any sort of thing outside the world. And it really was relaxing. It really felt good to be able to do that. And coming back into it, I mean, nothing had changed. It was the same old stories from a couple days before. But just since we've been back, there have been so many things happen, so many other injustices happen, that it's enough to make one man's head explode. And I went from being angry to being totally just felt like somebody punched me in the gut and disheartened to now I'm angry again. And I want to start off with, we'll get to the Black Lives Matter stuff here in a minute. I want to start off with the Supreme Court. I want to start off with the Title VII ruling that came down the other day, to where 6-3, Gorsuch sides with the other 5 liberals. That's right, 5 liberals on the court. John Roberts, he can join the liberal side. I don't want him. I don't want him to be considered a conservative. I don't want anything to do with John Roberts. He is the biggest disappointment on the Supreme Court that I have ever seen, and it's unfortunate that George Bush ever appointed him. He is the biggest disappointment to American conservatism. He was the same one who they flipped on Obamacare with the Obamacare tax, legislated from the bench, did the same thing with the 2014 gay marriage ruling, to where Roberts even said in his opinion that really, looking at the 14th Amendment, that there's no basis for their ruling today in the law. I mean, if you want to celebrate, and I'm paraphrasing, if you want to celebrate, you can celebrate. There's people who are going to be happy and disheartened by this. But really, our decision today is not made based off of constitutional law. John Roberts is the biggest waste, and Neil Gorsuch now sides with the other 5 liberals on the court on this. Writes, not even sides with them, but writes the majority opinion on this case, rewriting transgenderism into the definition of sex in a law written in 1964. If you voted for Donald Trump in 2016 solely because the Supreme Court was up for grabs, if that was your rationale, if that was your reasoning, you've been duped. You've been failed by these people. And it's not really even Trump's fault. It's the judge's fault. Because although Brett Kavanaugh was in the minority on that opinion, the Supreme Court also refused to hear, let alone decide on, but hear the sanctuary city case between the Trump administration and the state of California. Brett Kavanaugh sided with the other 5 liberal judges and Gorsuch on that one. It was a 7-2 minority. Godspeed to Alito and Clarence Thomas. They were the only 2 justices who wanted to bring that case up to the Supreme Court. And they were in the minority opinion on the Title VII, along, to Kavanaugh's credit, on the Title VII ruling that just came down the other day. But if you voted for Donald Trump in 2016 because of justices, you're screwed, I guess. It doesn't matter. Your vote was a loss. We were sold Neil Gorsuch, and I felt pretty good about him as well. And that's what angers me so much about this. We were sold Neil Gorsuch as an originalist, as a textualist, as a fundamentalist. And he all but admits in the majority opinion that although this wasn't the intention, this is what we're going to redefine it as. This is what we're going to redefine sex as. So now with this ruling coming down, you have all of these laws in states, you have all of these other federal laws that discuss sex, and now you're going to have the same argument there, and you're going to have to try to parse and split hairs. Well, what does sex mean here? Does it mean man, woman, or does it have to do with transgenderism? Does it have to do with gay rights? LGBT? He was sold to us as a fundamentalist. And in the first heat of battle, that's sold out. What are we doing? Honestly, what are we doing? What do we stand for anymore? That should be something that everyone is talking about, everyone is outraged about, because that betrayed every conservative across America, everyone who voted for Donald Trump. For that reason alone, just got screwed the other day. And we're sitting here talking, and I was about to get to it actually, about, SpongeBob is now gay. Nickelodeon comes out and they put up a tweet, and SpongeBob is now gay. We're fighting a cultural war on all fronts in an ambush that we hadn't even seen before. We hadn't seen coming. We thought we were winning the battle in whatever small way that might have been. We thought that we were holding our ground. We were standing rock solid. And here we are, ambushed on all sides, on all fronts of race, of sexuality, of judicial activism, of what it means, of anarchy, of autonomy, the Chaz, the Chop Zone in Seattle. Literal anarchy in the middle of one of America's biggest industrial cities, holding Amazon and Boeing and many other industries. An autonomous zone there declared, no police, American law does not apply here. We will police ourselves. Meanwhile, there's rapes, there's murders, there's violent assaults. What are we doing? What are we doing? Where are we on all of these fronts? And we're too distracted trying to defend Donald Trump's latest tweet? We have so much more to look at. We have so much more to fight for. They're doing this before the election. What do you think they're going to do after the election if a Democrat gets in the White House? Not that I think that that's going to happen, but what do you think they're going to do whenever they have the presidency? What do you think in 2024? Because that, I mean, truthfully, that's whenever I think that they will probably regain the presidency, is in 2024. What then? Is that whenever we're going to get our knives out? Is that whenever we're really going to fight? Because we're in control of the presidency. We're in control of the Senate. We had all of the momentum, and we've just let it be snatched away from us. What is wrong with you? Stand up. Fight. You Republicans in the Senate. You Republicans in Congress. What are you doing? Just standing around with your hands in your pants, letting the culture, American culture, just burn down. Just go down, crash in flames. Meanwhile, you have Black Lives Matter. You have Black Lives Matter running around. We just did a video on them. What their manifesto is, what their requiem is, what their purpose is. They are Marxist socialists wanting to fundamentally uproot and transform America into a European-esque nation. And what is the support for Black Lives Matter?
Currently sitting at 67%.
Yes.
From Pew Research.
2/3. And is that of, what is that of?
That is net total.
That is the net total of Americans or voters?
Just Americans.
Just Americans in general. So you have 2/3 of people who support Black Lives Matter. I don't know what the support was in 2014, but 2/3 of people are like, yeah, you know, I can get behind Black Lives Matter. Of course, Black Lives Matter. And it comes off the heels of something that is obviously wrong, that we said many times, if not here on YouTube, on Twitter. We stated many times George Floyd should not have died. That was wrong. The officers involved in that deserve to be punished. They deserve jail time. They need to be charged, which they now have. They were wrong in that. That was a wrongful death. We've said that many times, and it comes off the heels of that, and I think people are conflating Black Lives Matter with that. And since they saw something horrible happen to a black man by a police officer, they're now going to support Black Lives Matter. But they haven't looked at what Black Lives Matter is actually about. And now that all of this has happened, this happened in 2014 after Michael Brown. Now, seemingly every day, every week, you have incidents of black men being shot by police or assaulted or something in some way. And remember this, you are the consumer, you are not the consumer media, pardon me. You are the product. You are sold your media. You are the product. The newspapers, the websites, they need money in order to continue their business, in order to make their livelihood. And in order to do that, there needs to be conflict, there needs to be division, and they need to act as the arbiters of truth. Real journalism doesn't sell anymore. That's what they'll tell you. That's what they tell you in today's world. Real journalism doesn't sell anymore. People need sensationalism. People need journalism that creates division, because that is what sells. And our journalism today is all but thinly veiled activism.
And that's why they won't tell you the facts. They won't tell you the facts and the statistics that are taking place, because the police have nearly 50 million interactions each year with the public. And you have a total of maybe at the most, I don't even think it reaches the limit of 50 people, 50 unarmed men, black, white, whatever race, are shot. That is a 1 in a million chance that arrest, that confrontation with an officer is going to go wrong.
Exactly. Last year, as we discussed a couple episodes ago, from the Washington Post, in 2019, there were 16 unarmed white men shot as opposed to 8 unarmed black men. what is being sold to you is nothing but division. But don't worry, Colin Kaepernick is going to come back to the NFL. Colin Kaepernick, as Roger Goodell says, he's going to help lead the league on social justice. And what an unfortunate time for the XFL to bow out, unfortunately. What an unfortunate time. Because that was going to be their whole thing. As a response to the NFL, as a response to their kneeling, their whole thing was more ball, less stall. They weren't going to allow any of that kind of crap. It was going to be a faster game of football. Try to improve on the product the NFL has, although they weren't in direct competition because their season started after the conclusion of the NFL. But what a sad time for the XFL to bow out, because I imagine now more than ever that they would have had support.
And I can bet that it's probably going to start, I'm wondering, in college football. If you'll see that come about.
It's going to start. It's going to start everywhere.
Which was the one alternative that people turned to. Was college football.
There's so much more that I could discuss, I could throw out there, that I could say. But the purpose of this is to try and just take American conservatives, Republicans, anyone who's listening, and take you by the shoulders and shake you awake and tell you, look around at what is going on. We've gotten comfortable. We've gotten complacent behind the leadership of Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, and I've said this on Twitter as well. Donald Trump has kind of disappointed me with this whole Chaz thing. He's kind of disappointed me with the riots. And I realize the argument of letting the Democrats hang themselves. But at some point, this has to go beyond just political party politics and to what are the principles that we fight for, and that is the rule of law. That applies to everyone, all races, all religions, all creeds. That's a message that we need to get out there. Conservatives for so long have not had problems with our ideas. It's our branding. It's our PR. We look like stuffy elites. I don't know how else to describe it. We just seem stuffy and old and antiquated. That's why liberals dominate the culture. We have the winning ideas. We have the proven ideas that have led us to this point. The liberals do not. All socialist countries, all Marxist countries have failed and went down in flames. We should be winning. Why aren't we? Wake up. Look around you. We are trying to preserve the fabric of America, and right now it is being burned. So how do we come back? What do we do? I know that, it might seem extreme and that I'm just frustrated, but folks, this is the same slippery slope and degradation that happened under the Obama administration, in the early years of the Obama administration, which led to a variety of different progressive policies being passed. For a moment, shame on me. Shame on me. For a moment, I thought that the Republicans behind Donald Trump might have grown a spine. Shame on me for actually thinking that, because they're the same people who were there under the Obama administration, and they did nothing. They did nothing. They had the House and the Senate at one point, and they did nothing. So shame on me for ever thinking that a Republican will ever be anything different than a progressive light who eventually gives in to what the Democrat wants anyway, in some way, shape, or form. That's going to do it for this edition of the WireTap. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're very active there. We've had a lot of interaction on Twitter. It's been a lot of fun over the last couple of weeks. So we are at the CWire, capital T, C, and W. We're at the CWire on Twitter. And for Logan, I am JD saying goodbye, God bless, and we will see you in the next episode. Today is going to be an interesting day. Today is going to be a barn burner, some might say.